Hey, welcome back, everybody. PowerHouse. We're in the house. Zach Shue,
Dan Turbyville.
Hey, I like that.
What's happening, everybody?
We are presented by this evening Memphis Fence Company, MFC Manufacturing, Simpalo, and now Thornton Fence Consulting Group, which Thornton Consulting Group just finished up the summit at Job Nimbus. There was a link that's already happened. We don't have a lot of report from that. Maybe we can catch up with
really
Tony
new.
and get some info on that.
Yeah, the link to their events is still, I think, in the description on this show as well, like it was last week.
Yes.
So you should be able to see that. If you want to check out the events they have for the rest of the year, I would definitely suggest finding your way to at least one of them.
Right.
It's always some great information, good networking, all of that kind of stuff that goes on there.
Yeah, wealth of resources there on the Fence Consulting Group website.
Yeah, for sure.
We are live this evening. We are here. We are live.
We are here. That's right. Oh, let's throw the phone number on here. There we go. 901-878-4987 if anybody wants to call. And I probably should connect that too. So
cool. So I haven't really done any new reading. I'm tired of saying the Toyota way, so I was going to not say it, but I said it anyways. But I'm still working on that. That's about it among the various sort of spiritual teacher stuff, which I don't think anybody's really interested in. So whatever paths I go down with that, because it can get pretty out there.
Yep. I've still been on the Founders podcast. I'm really enjoying it.
Cool.
It's pretty cool. The guy puts in a ton of work to those episodes and reads autobiographies and watches interviews and watches movies and goes all out in that thing. And I've been enjoying it. So
I appreciated the one episode that I listened to.
Yeah. The Michael Jordan and Kobe.
Right. I am still pursuing the Headway app, which has been cool. Like I said, I got it in a folder with the social media stuff. So when I'm inclined to go just scroll on social media, pop the Headway app open. It's got like a 15-minute read. You can also listen to it if you choose. And just to kind of get out of that. Yeah. You're not always in a position where you're like, I'm just going to grab a book and read for 15 minutes. So to have it handy on the app is pretty cool. And that we're not sponsored by them or anything. It's just something I decided I wanted to do for some personal growth. And I appreciate, having that little read periodically instead of just swiping or shopping or.
Yeah, I really need to do that.
Building off-road lawnmowers, which is what I was looking at this morning.
Yeah. So when I go lay down at night in bed and I lay there for an hour playing on my phone, I could spend a bit of that time doing something productive.
Right. Look at guitars for about 30 minutes.
Right.
Then read for 30.
Well, and I try to go through all the different fence industry Facebook stuff. We've had some posts that we've brought on here and used them as topics for the show and stuff. And also try to go on there and answer any questions that I feel like I should answer or could answer.
Right. I always purpose myself to go on Facebook and Instagram to kind of promote the brand or be visible. And I do that. And then afterwards, I just get stuck.
Yep. So, right. And then wind up going down that rabbit hole. So, yes, sir. So we're the 18th. We're going to go to the local AFA chapter meeting. So we are the Memphis Tri-State Fence Association. So that's here coming up in another 2 weeks, I think. So that show will be recorded that night, but we'll be there. And then
we also have May 17th and 18th is the annual golf tournament in Tunica, Mississippi. The outline is something like Friday practice round, a Saturday tournament. There's a reception Friday night, steak dinner, and award ceremony Saturday night. We should have a link in the description also. Again, that's our local chapter, the Memphis Tri-State Fence Association of the AFA.
Yep, that's right. And it's normally a pretty decent crowd that shows up there, not just, local people from around here.
Right. We sasaid 150 played golf last year or something like that.
I think they said 165 played last year. So
165. I didn't want to overbid. Price is Right rules.
Right.
150 from last year, including, that's just people who registered to play golf. So they're friends and family and who, coworkers and employees and whoever else goes, that could, increase the list.
That's right.
Right now, I'd like to, before we get too much deeper into the show, thank everybody for supporting us, all the people who, shake our hands when we're out in public and say thank you, and those of who stop by to just listen or chat or say whatever, thank you guys for listening, watching, and any participation you do at all is we really appreciate that. Honestly, that's why we do this, is in hopes that we're able to share a little bit of our experience.
Yep. And we're also open to any suggestions for topics for the show or guests you'd like to see on here, anything like that. Like I said, I do try to, go through a lot of the Facebook groups and try to see any kind of post or comments or anything like that I might be able to shed some light on. And we've talked about them here periodically, but if there's anything more, feel free to reach out to us. We're pretty easy to find. So
that's right.
We'll, our plan right now is that we're going to the West Coast trade show, the regional AFA trade show that's out there.
Reno, Nevada, right?
Reno, Nevada in September. And so we'll be talking about that more coming into the future. So
next week we have a guest that just kind of happened organically for you. Yep. You were working with this person bidding a job. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So we bid a job, and it was a GSA job. So, on federal property. And I was on the phone with the lady that was one of the general contractors, and I was on the phone with her for like 20 or 30 minutes. And I just randomly was like, hey, wait a minute. You would make a good guest on our podcast. And so she's going to come on next week, and we'll kind of talk some about that GSA world and kind of what it's like to work there and the differences in that versus working with general contractors that are, in the like public space. But enough about that. So I'm pretty excited about our guest this week.
Right.
I feel bad like calling him a guest, right? Because like I'm really excited about
Thank you for
our
having
other
us
host.
be a guest on your show.
Right.
Tonight is the Joe Everest show. Just kidding.
Yeah.
So tonight we have Joe Everest. And what we plan to talk about is Joe's been doing podcasts a good bit. He's also been in the fence industry for a long time. So we're going to kind of meander through some of his experience in both of those worlds. I think a lot of the questions we have in our outline here are geared towards podcasting and that kind of thing. Yeah. Some more podcast specific. And I'm not sure if this one is for us to gain from Joe, or is this actually for the audience? I don't really care that much.
So really, like, welcome, my Joe, intention, y'all. It was, I want to ask some questions, and I want to try to figure out like how we can be better with what we're trying to do. And what better place to ask questions like that than while you're live streaming on social media. So what's up, Benji? Good to see you. So that's kind of how I think how this happened is we just wanted some information. And so we went to the man. So good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us, man.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Those are always the guests I enjoy most, is the ones that I legitimately want to learn from. I think that makes the show that much more special. So I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm honest when I say I am absolutely as excited to come on as you are to have me on. When you reached out initially, I was very, very excited to come on.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. So we were talking a bit before, and I was like, I'm kind of nervous about this. It's like if I was giving a presentation in front of like, the head of the university or something like that instead of just my teacher. And so,
right. So maybe at the end of the show, we'll give you like a couple-minute window to critique our podcast here, or a little roast of PowerHouse crew.
So we got Dan Wheeler tuning in tonight. We got Seth here. So let's jump in. You ready to do some Italian?
Yeah, we'll do things a little different and start with our Italian. So this is a segment of the show we like to call a moment of Italian with Ilaria. We don't call it anything.
We don't really have a name. It's just the
Italian word of the week with Ilaria Pisoni. Ilaria, what's the word for the week?
I don't know. What's the word for the week?
Oh, it's actually a phrase. It's 2 words.
Oh my God. Okay.
Fence expert. I was wondering if you're going to go through with that. Fence expert.
Oh no.
Esperti delle recinzioni.
Oh gosh.
Oh no.
Good luck.
Say it one more time, please. And then use it in a sentence.
Okay. Esperti delle recinzioni.
Esperti delle recinzioni.
Slay.
Esperti della retenzione.
Okay, I can give you another one. It's like esperti dei cancelli.
Oh.
Does that help?
How many words is that?
Asperge de Concelli.
Oh my God, then no, you're done.
Joe, you want to give it a shot, man?
No. I was gonna say, I hope there's not a quiz at the end of this.
No, I don't remember any of the Italian words ever.
Yeah, me neither. So we were talking about that, I think, a few weeks ago, and we were like, "Oh, we should do a test." And then I was like, "For what? I don't remember any of this. I can't even get it right on while we do it."
I'm gonna make a book.
So, Ilaria, can we tell your story?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
So last night or yesterday evening, Ilaria was in a car wreck. And when I say a car wreck, I heard that and I was like, oh, like a fender bender or something like that. So my wife, Alyssa, shows me a picture on her phone and it's Ilaria's car upside down, like 20 feet from the side of the road off in a parking lot. And I was like, holy cow, is she okay?
Wow.
And she's like, oh, yeah, she just got out and had like a couple of bruises or something like that and was completely fine. And I was like, oh, my goodness, that's crazy. So very grateful about that and happy to have Ilaria here with us. And she showed up to work this morning, not in her car, obviously, but she did get here.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm alive.
Yeah. So I think everybody knows who Joe Everest is. I mean, everyone has surely seen, heard, met something Joe at this point. So, third generation in the fence industry. And I don't remember the story that well, to be honest with you, but kind of like ushered in a new era of online content and stuff like that for the fence industry, I believe. And so I'm going to butcher this story really quick, and then you can tell us the truth of it, right?
You got it.
And so I remember it's something like you went to some like media creation or media content, kind of like trade show, and you ran into a guy that was like a plumber.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's like, man, you need to be making or maybe you told him that you had the idea of making videos. And he's like, you 100% need to do it. He said, I did it in my local market. Next thing you know, I became the expert on plumbing in this area. And like, now everybody calls us. And then you left and you went home and you did nothing for a year.
Yep.
And then went back and ran into the same guy at the same place again. And he's like, so how's those videos going? And you're like, and then it was kind of like, all right, no, you need to go do it, like for real this time. And then I think you started after that. Is it something along those lines?
Yeah. I mean, listen, you definitely got the majority of it. Yeah. So it was at Social Media Marketing World, which is, it's not really a trade show. It's basically just a training, like a 3 or 4 day training session. And they've got a bunch of speakers and you go, like, they've got podcasts, they've got vodcast, which is technically, I think, what this is. And they've got, and now it's like they do platform specific. So YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, where you can go, learn from professionals in those fields. People that are doing, obviously trendsetters in each one of those. So yeah, I was hanging out at one of these. I was in between sessions, and this guy came on, and he's a big guy that like a handlebar mustache. He's like, "Hey, I hear you're a fence guy." Well, I am, sure, yeah. And he goes, "Well, I'm a plumber." Like, oh, okay, cool. He goes, "I think we are the only two tradespeople here." And he wasn't kidding. Like, it's all agency people. So agencies will send their specialist and whatever to this to learn like about their specific specialty of platforms. He goes, I think we're the only true tradespeople here. Like, I think you're probably right. It was my first year there. I didn't know what to expect. I think you're probably right. He goes, well, we should just hang out, like, hang out with each other. Cause I don't like, agency people are just a different breed. So, yeah, listen, I'm down for that. And so we got to talking, and yeah, he had, his name's Roger Wakefield, and the channel is The Plumbing Expert. And he's like, hey, I'm a plumber. I do YouTube. You should do YouTube. Like and I was like, I'm a fence guy. Like, what would I talk about? He goes, dude, I'm a plumber. What would I talk about? I mean, unclogging toilets, unclogging sinks, replacing a water heater. Like, people want to know about this stuff. You could do the same stuff with fencing. Interesting. He goes, you got to do it. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll take a look at it. And then I didn't, because I'm running a business and I'm trying to grow a business and this and that and the other. And then the next year he's like, hey, he came straight up like, hey, you remember me? Like, I don't know how I could forget you, Roger. Yes, absolutely remember you. And he said, I've been looking for your videos, can't seem to find them. Like, well, yeah, that's because I haven't done them yet. He goes, well, you're gonna do them. You go, okay. He goes, that's what we're gonna spend our time here to figuring out, is putting together a channel for you. And he goes, I've got his stepson Will did all of his editing and stuff like that. He said, hey, Will's got some extra time. If you want, like, I can create kind of like an agency, and you can send us your videos and we'll edit them and we'll like help you build this channel. Which, I mean, how do you say no to that? He's like, all you got to do is sit in front of a camera, record some content, send it to us, and we'll figure it out. He goes, this is how sure I am that this will work. And that's how it started. Will's still on our team. He does it virtually from Texas. He does a fair amount of the editing remotely. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's cool. I didn't know that they were still involved, but that's pretty neat.
Yeah, Will is. Well, it's not mine to talk about, but Will still does work with us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Cool. Good. Well, again, thank you for being here. We have that a few times throughout the show. We're just going to stop and thank you for being here. So
Right.
a huge thank you for being here. And if I didn't mention it, thanks again for being here.
Guys, I'm serious. I'm just as excited.
So I heard about this that you posted a video on April the 1st about transitioning out of the on-camera role.
Yeah.
Is that something I think you're supposed to unveil or have an answer to that video, part 2, Saturday? And is this something you want to talk about today with us?
Not really.
Just a little bit.
No, I mean,
nobody will hear.
No,
Just between us,
right, and all the viewers. No, I mean, I think it was pretty clear. I try to make it a little bit tongue in cheek. I mean, obviously it's April Fool's, right? Mm-hmm. So, and the interviews were I sold it a little too well in the beginning, and then in the interviews were all kind of tongue in cheek, and they were all good. We lost subscribers in the first minute of the video.
Oh,
so,
wow.
You know how you can watch, like, you can see like where people unsubscribe and stuff like that. And
wow.
Like, well, I mean, you want to sell it because it's an April Fool's and it's funnier if you sell it. But then if you do sell it, and there were a few comments that were like, listen, I just showed up to watch you do it. I didn't show up to watch anybody else do it. So unsubscribe. It's like, oh.
Well, so I think it's time we let them know that I'm the new face of the Joe Everest show, right?
So what's funny, my dad referenced like strawberry shortcake somewhere in his video. I've got to go back and rewatch it. Somewhere he referenced that. Number one comment was, we're voting for Jim because we'd sure like to see the strawberry shortcake. Like, it's funny what people pick up on, you know? So I texted him. I said, hey, good news is you're in the lead. Bad news is you're going to have to come up with a pretty banging strawberry cheesecake or strawberry shortcake recipe. but no, it was all in good fun. Sold it a little too hard in the beginning, maybe.
I was thoroughly confused. Right.
I thought you were going to say convinced. I was
really confused. I was like, all right, so the beginning piece and the end piece are like super sincere. And then like the whole middle part of it is pretty silly, right? And I was like, I don't know what's going on here. So.
No, and like I said, and we went back and forth on the outro, like saying April Fools, and in hindsight, we absolutely should have. We should have like left, and so the idea was we were going to leave just some blank, like just some black screen, and then come back, and I would like wink and be like, "Did I get you? Let me know in the comments below." See, Steven, Team Jim. Everybody's Team Jim. They want this strawberry shortcake recipe. We're gonna fly Brian in to run the show. Absolutely. But we hindsight being 2020 and what it is, we absolutely should have at the very end like done some sort of just kidding. But,
right. Yeah, like I said, I was kind of confused. I was like, I don't know if I should take this seriously or not. I'm not sure, but.
Speaking of I don't know and things that we're not sure on how to take seriously, we're kind of go back and forth and waver a bit on mentioning brand names or companies we're associated with or that we do business with, vendors, whether we have our guests announce. Obviously, our guests, typically we give them the option whether they want to talk about who they work for or whatever.
Right.
But so we're kind of apprehensive about mentioning certain product names and brands. So
even if we're like, oh, we bought a tool and it's made, oh no, I'm not going to mention who it's made by, but like we're really excited to use it. And so not necessarily in like a negative sense, but just at all, we're really hesitant to mention any kind of brand names or any of that.
Yeah.
And so we were curious if you got any input on that situation there.
Yeah, and when you watch different shows outside our industry, you really see it handled differently. I mean, there's no like one hard set, rule or whatever. And yeah, so Canon, only if they're paying, and that's absolutely agree. Or if it brings value, that's my comma, or if they bring value. And so, and a lot of times I'm pretty clear about it. I'm like, guys, this is not an endorsement, because here's the thing is you go and mention it and then somebody else buys it and they have a bad experience about it or with it. Does that also reflect on you for because even if you don't say, hey, I recommend it, I love it, you should try it, by mentioning it, it almost feels as if you're recommending it.
Yeah, you're putting some weight behind it or something like that. Yeah.
Well, and I may be off, but it seems like if we were to mention a tool that we do like, say we do like a tool, we mention it, would that not put us more in a better position to negotiate terms with a sponsor? If we're always mentioning the tool, it's like, I don't know about that.
I don't know. Maybe.
We don't mention it now, but we promise we will start using and mention it if you pay us.
Watch this clip. We could have put your name in there, but we didn't, I mean.
Right. The other side of that coin is what's the saying? Like, why buy the cow if you get the milk for free?
Right.
So like there is, there's some sort of middle ground there. And each, and like I said, you can watch 10 shows and see them handle it 10 different ways. If we're sponsored, I'm usually very upfront, or I am very upfront with, hey, this is a paid promotion. Here's the details about it. Maybe not the details, but like, you know what I mean? They sent me this thing for free. While this isn't a sponsored, I did get some value out of it. So I want you, the guest, or you, the watchers, viewers, to know, here's the deal with it or whatever. But I don't know. I don't mind mentioning it if I try it. Now, this conversation is similar to like when you bring sponsors on, right? Like, what does that look like? I very much want to fully believe and fully buy in before we have that conversation, because again, if I'm going to bring it on the show and we're going to talk about it, there is some level of responsibility. I don't want to recommend this to a bunch of fence guys and gals and have them have a bad experience. And they're like, oh, or someone comes up, like they come up to us in shows, right? And they'll come up to you in a show and they'll say, hey, love it when you talked about this, 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 and this. What I would not want to happen is someone to come up and say, hey, you recommended this widget. I tried it and it doesn't work. And I go, yeah, I don't actually use it. Yeah. Like that's just for the show. And it's because then you lose credibility instantly. Right. When people figure that out. And I think people are smart that watch these, right? Like they figure things out. So if I use it and I like it, I mean, generally we'll reach out and talk about sponsorship, but I'm not going to not talk about it just because they won't sponsor. If I think it would be good for the industry and I think some guys get value, I don't mind talking about it, but usually in a way that's, hey, this is not sponsored, but I think you guys might like this. I've tried it. I liked it. Here's the thing.
All right.
Sure.
So I tried to think of some examples, but I couldn't remember any. I know that was like a thing that we did for a while. And then I think at this point, it's just like default, we don't mention their names or whatever. But I tried to think of some like example scenarios where we didn't mention something or whatever. But
I'll give you an example we're in the middle of. So the Mosure device. I think that's how you pronounce it. Moasure. They're at all the shows. They do and they're all over Facebook. Like, and maybe they're targeting. Like, maybe I watched one of their videos and now I'm just in like a retargeting loop or something. But I see their stuff everywhere. And so anyway, I was like, you know what? We're gonna buy this thing. and I'm going to see if it works. I don't know. Like if it works well, I think it would be good. So, but they're not a sponsor, and we had discussed sponsorship with them, and we just didn't come to any sort of agreement. But we're still posting the content.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like we're still doing the unboxing, or we just put out the unboxing Monday, I believe, and then we're going to put out the field test in a little bit. So, love that.
Kanan harassing us over here.
He's something. He's something. But yeah. So I mean, I'll use stuff like that, and I'll show stuff like that. But then in that video, in that Mosier video, we talk about, hey, I paid full price for this. But I think it would be good for you guys to see. So we're going to do some video content on it.
Right.
Cool. Yeah, just like an honest tool review, basically.
So kind of my thought and like my position on sponsors have been, if it's not something that I use and I believe in and I know is good, I don't really want to talk to you about it. And like, you're welcome to send it to me and we'll test it. Right. But I mean, unless this thing holds up and performs the way that we expect it to, I'm not interested in you sponsoring our show. And so like that 100%, I'm not going to just like sit here and talk about how we use something and it's awesome and I've never even seen one. Right.
Right.
But,
or you don't believe in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, a lot of people use this thing. I don't use it. I don't know anything about it. Then it doesn't make sense to sponsor. You know what I mean? Because then if someone comes to you privately to ask you about it, you're like, I really don't actually know how it works because I don't use it. That's not a good look.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. So all of these sponsors we know about, you know,
right? We believe in.
That's
definitely.
Right. That's
We're
right.
invested in even.
Right.
So moving forward, man, do you have any sort of metric for just kind of assurance that you're creating helpful content? Aside from what I do is we post a episode or whatever, and I run and check the likes and comments. You know, basically, you know, it's like, did I post a cute picture and did they like it? Kind of a vibe. How else do you kind of determine if you're reaching people or what they want, or if you feel like it's good or whatever?
So that's tough. Right. It's tough to figure out because you can look at average view duration and views and like to dislike ratios and that sort of stuff. But that's not why we're doing this. Right. Like we're not doing this for likes and views. We're also, I mean, I think there's a whole side conversation about like monetization. I think people think that's the motivation. If you would see the YouTube monetization checks, it's not the motivation. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing there. Not nothing. Anyway, but the reason we're doing this is to help other fencing contractors, right? To help the industry, to propel the industry forward into, more professionalism or whatever the motivations of the channel are. And so I think the way that's working is when you're at shows and you're talking to viewers about some of the content you discuss, right? Or the comment section. I mean, you see uplifting comments in the comment section. Hey, you helped me figure this out. I'm just starting out. You helped me with this, this, and this. I think that's where that feedback comes from, to let you know if you're doing, if you're making good content and people are really getting value out of it. But it's hard because you can't quantify that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's cool though. I mean, kind of seeing that feedback of like, man, you saved my butt on this thing. I was trying to figure it out and here it is. That kind of stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's one of the things that we've kind of like asked in the past, I think, is like, hey, if you like what we're doing, maybe just let us know. Like,
right. Check yes or no.
Right.
Well, because from our position, like behind the camera or on this side of the screen, we're in an empty room talking to a camera. Like there's no feedback. If we're talking to a room, if you're giving a talk or if you're giving a demonstration, you're getting real-time feedback. You're getting nods or you're getting questions, or in this room, there is no feedback. And when you're producing content and you're scheduling it out a month in advance or whatever, you're not seeing that feedback. And you do need that though. And you do need to see the comments to say, hey, this is worthwhile. I'll be honest. There's periods of time where like I really wonder, like, is it positive? Like, are we having a positive impact? Do we change directions, or do we do more content or less content, or what is it? Because I don't know if this is actually like I enjoy it, but I don't know if anybody else enjoys it. And if no one else is getting anything out of it, then is this a hobby project? Because
Right.
you guys understand this. If this was a hobby project, we are way out of line on what on the production we're putting into it and all of that. But then you go to a show and you meet some people that say that they enjoy the show and that it really helped them, and then you're like, okay, we are actually on the right track here. Like we're doing good stuff. It's hard.
Yeah, so
Right.
that's kind of been like our experience, I think, is we'll do this for a while and we're like, does anyone care that we're doing this? Like,
Right.
is it serving any purpose
Right.
to this industry at all? And then something will happen, like you're talking about, where somebody will be like, oh man, I listened to your show. It's great. Y'all are, I think I've had a few people say that y'all are hilarious and things like that. And,
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of cool to see like some positive feedback from people. And it kind of like sparks the motivation to kind of get down here and do it again, So,
Yep.
Sure. Another thing I
Awesome.
think it's not really quantifiable is how long were you creating content before you felt like you were gaining traction? I guess that could be designated by a number of followers, but again, another, thing there's no measure for.
Yeah, I bet. So I first started it just as a hobby, like as a fun project. I would do it in an afternoon or evening when, the kids were in bed and I could film content for a little bit. I would do that. And then I started seeing comments and I started getting feedback and getting emails about, hey, I saw your video on this. Can you tell me more about that? Or I've seen your videos, but you haven't talked about this. Would you mind doing a video on this? And it's like, oh, okay. So people are watching. Like I see the views, but I also watch stuff on YouTube and scroll past it that probably counted as a view, so views are tough. But you get that feedback. And I was like, oh, okay. And then the thing grew, and then subscribers started shooting off, which I think to a certain point, subscribers are a metric to follow because it takes a lot for somebody to subscribe. You guys, when you look at your metrics behind the scenes, it's like 78, 79, 80% of people that watch the content are unsubscribed, right? Or not subscribed. So if someone takes the time to subscribe and comment, then we're doing something right. So not necessarily views, subscribers are a good metric, but and then we did a video on Post Foam that absolutely launched the channel into, into a higher subscriber count and higher viewer metrics, and then that actually brought a lot of the other content up with it, and then we were off to the races.
Cool. Note to self: next show we'll do Post Foam.
Right.
So, right.
We need to find our Post Foam video.
Yeah.
It is funny to me though how you'll see like views that kind of just like randomly trickle in for a video that or a podcast or whatever we did 6 months ago.
Yep.
And I mean it's like people that found the show last week and then went back and listened to something else, and so that is interesting too. How I guess it kind of like disperses across everything when you do something like that.
Yeah, and sometimes it's completely random. We'll have a video that does okay for a few months, and then randomly the algorithm picks it up, and then it shoots up. But it is funny. You watch that video shoot up, and then you'll look at your other videos, and it'll take 5 or 6 other videos up with it. Within a day, you'll see those start to climb as well. And because, when you're watching YouTube, it suggests stuff on the side of the screen that you might also like this, and I'm sure that's what's going on. But sometimes it feels very random.
Mm-hmm. So how long had you been making content before you got to that like Post Foam video?
Oh, it was, man, I'd have to look. I want to say it was probably a year and a half, 2 years, maybe. Like it was a while. And it was a while. It was,
I made a few videos, like YouTube videos for Memphis Fence Company, probably after listening to you talk about just make some videos kind of stuff.
Yep.
And so I went and I did some research and I listened to like several different people about, editing videos and all of this kind of stuff. And I remember one of the guys in his like intro to his video, it said, you just got to press record. And that's something that little phrase has stuck with me ever since then. And it's like, you know what? you're going to do it and it's going to suck for a while, but you're going to like get better at doing it and you're going to like gain viewers and followers and all of this stuff. But I mean, if you're going to do it, you just need to do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and people get hung up on that thing of like trying to make something perfect before like publishing it. And I myself,
That's me.
yeah.
Right.
And I mean, I'm kind of meticulous about things. And so like, I'll get stuck in that world where I'm like, no, this is not just perfect. I still see like something off right here or whatever. And like, man, at some point you got to just put it out there. And so how do you, how do y'all kind of fight that fight or?
Yeah. So I saw at Social Media Marketing World, one of them, there was a speaker, and just like your Just Press Record moment, there was a lady that was speaking on YouTube, and her phrase was, "Done is better than perfect." Yeah. She said, "I can't tell you how many videos I have stuck in hard drives that never saw the light of day because I wasn't comfortable with the level of, you know, the quality that was in these videos, and they still have never seen the light of day because I never felt comfortable with them." So. Jordan's absolutely right. Yeah, perfection is the enemy of the good.
That's a Winston Churchill quote. Perfection is the enemy of progress.
That's absolutely it. And that's what stuck with me.
Yeah.
Was you just got to get it done. If you're striving for perfection, you'll never be done. And a good example is, so I started creating video content for Ozark Fence first, and I'd asked my wife to take the kids to the playground because I was going to record this. I mean, this is when Ozark Fence was in a 1,200 square foot facility of office and shop. Right there was nowhere to do videos in that place, so I did it in our living room. I got just a cheap backdrop off of Amazon. I got a couple CFL lights off of Amazon, and I borrowed a buddy's camcorder, and I put it up in the living room. And so she took the kids to the playground, and I started, I read this book. Or no, I watched him speak at one of these shows, and then I got the book. Marcus Sheridan, They Ask You Answer. He is a pool contractor. He's got a whole story, but he was making content. He said the first piece of content you need to make are the top 5 questions you're tired of answering every day. Because if people are calling you with these questions, it stands to reason there are more people that just either haven't had the time to call you or don't feel comfortable calling you or whatever. So I was doing that content. I was, how much does a fence cost? I can't tell you, but I can tell you what leads up to or what contributes to the cost of the fence, what type it is, how much of it there is, and that sort of thing. What radius of, what service area does Ozark Fence cover? Is cedar better than pine? Just all these questions that we get asked every day, all day. I got through one video after a few hours because every time I would stutter or I'd stammer, I'd stop and I'd reset, and I'd start from the beginning because I'm a fence guy. I'm not a video editor. So if I can just do all of this at once, I don't have to edit it. And finally, like several hours later, my wife texts me. She said, "I hope you're done because we're coming home. You better wrap it up because we are about 5 minutes from the house right now." Yeah. And that's, I was at an hour a minute, an hour of recording for a minute of content. So, but to your point earlier, the hardest step is the first step, right? And then it gets a little easier and a little easier. And then we just started, and then I heard the whole, done is better than perfect. And so I stopping when I stammered or I said a word incorrectly. I just kept powering through it.
Yeah. I sure hope that formula doesn't apply to us. We record an hour-long podcast once a week live. So if we're collecting 1 minute of valuable content in that 1 hour show, we're on episode 13 this year. We have effectively produced 13 minutes of quote unquote valuable content.
So we don't even
take credit for all 13 minutes. Just saying.
We don't even give you an hour of valuable content in a year.
Well, no, you guys figured out though, part of the secret sauce is going live, right? Because you can't stop and you can't start over. This content's coming out, whether it's perfectly polished or not. And when I'm talking to fencing contractors about doing it, I said, hey, it's going to feel weird, but do your content live, because you're not going to be inclined to stop when you mispronounce a word or, whatever, you say something incorrectly or what have you. But it's
Unless
going to
it's
freak
Italian.
you out.
Right. Yeah.
Unless it's Italian, and then we may stammer and stop and try again.
so
and all
But that makes for good content.
That's why we do it at the beginning of the show. Like, let's go ahead and get that out of the way. Like, watch us butcher these Italian words, and now anything else is, doesn't really matter anymore. But man, it's crazy sitting in front of a camera and just talking to it, right? So you've talked about how you don't get any feedback or anything, and you've kind of talked about going live. And so even this is different than just me going outside and pulling out my phone and going on Facebook Live. Yeah. It's two different things to me. So Cannon and I were sitting in Starbucks in Jackson one day, and like we were going over some stuff with Simpalo and, messing around with that. And he just pulled his phone out. He's like, I'm going live. And I was like, what? And I mean, I was like as nervous as I've ever been in my life in that moment. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, we had been doing this for a little while at that point. And I was like, this is the same thing as what we do. Why did that affect me so differently? So it's weird how, like, in different situations too, the way that you feel is so much different.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, to get back to your original point, it is weird doing this. Like, this does not feel normal. Right now, I'm in a room all by myself. I'm just talking to a camera. I've got you guys in my ear so that it doesn't echo. So anybody that walked in would just see me talking to this and then going, oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. They're like, what is this guy doing? Goofball. Got lights up everywhere, and but it never feels normal. That's a question I get. Like, well, when does it start to feel normal? I'll let you know. I don't know.
Right. Well, that's encouraging. So it's always going to feel weird as long as I'm doing this.
a little bit, but you get used to it. You get used to the weirdness.
Yeah.
We had our cybersecurity guys on, also the developers for the Simpalo software, and got to talking about AI generated videos. And that's kind of been something fun that we've been looking into. You had some questions concerning AI, Joe's experience with that, some stuff like that.
So, well, I was just going to kind of like talk about the whole perfection deal, right? And how you can sit there and watch a video or listen to yourself on a podcast or whatever, and you can always pick out the flaw. And so OpenAI, the same people that made ChatGPT, they're actively developing an AI video generator. And there's, I don't know, like 20 or 30 or 40, like preview videos that's on the website for it right now. And I went through and I watched them. And I mean, I was completely amazed. And I sat there for probably like, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever, watched every single one of them. And then I took it a step further and I went to YouTube and like put in the name of it and started looking around through there. And I saw these like reaction videos, and these guys would sit there and they would play a video. And then they're like, well, if you look at this and this and this and this, like you can see the flaws in it. I never saw any of it. And it would be like their hands look like some kind of weird alien. And they're just like doing all these crazy things with their hands. Like AI really struggles with hands and image creation or video creation or any of that. They'd be
in general.
For now it does.
Right. They would be like walking down the sidewalk, but they're like sliding sideways kind of as they're walking. It was just a bunch of little weird things like that. But when I watched it the first time, I didn't notice any of it. And so, that kind of thing kind of builds confidence too when you're creating a video. And I'm like, well, if I watched it and I didn't notice any of that, then probably other people are going to watch our stuff and not notice where we mess up as much too. So
yeah.
Well, we've talked about that too in performing in a band, how the moments on stage for me when somebody would like miss a note or drop a stick, the drummer drops his stick, which is a long time. It's multiple seconds of time where he's just playing with one hand. And I on stage in that moment, it seems like an eternity. And then afterwards, you go back and listen to the recording. Even knowing it happened, I can't hear where the stick dropped,
Right.
So,
yeah,
the AI is crazy. It really is. And you're right. Right now, if you played it over and over, you can pick apart like, well, the skin's too smooth. Like that's a big thing they look at is how smooth is the skin? Are the wrinkles or this and that? And that's fine. This is version 1. Right. So think about when you used to call and get like a phone directory, right? Like, thank you for calling such and such services. For sales, press 1. For service, press 2. Well, now call that place. You feel like you're talking to a person. Hi, thanks for calling so-and-so. If you're calling for this, it's better.
Oh,
Right.
yeah,
And,
sure.
and that's technology in general. I mean, look at ChatGPT. I mean, the initial versions of that were not great. Like hallucination, and they still have hallucinations where it just makes up stuff, but it's better now. And that the way generative AI works is it consistently learns. It consistently gets better. And so as you give it feedback, it registers it, and now it won't make that mistake again. It'll continue to learn. Same thing with video is I'm sure the programmers are programming in, hey, don't slide down the sidewalk. And the hands have to have 4 fingers and a thumb, right? Like that's the thing is like they're always like 6 fingers and a thumb or something like that, or 3 fingers and a thumb.
Yeah,
It's going to get better.
I have to constantly tell Chat GPT to remove the word fencing from stuff when it creates it for me. And I'm like, do not use fencing. Fences, only use the word fence. And like, it'll go through and correct it one time, and then I'll ask it something else, and it does the same thing. I'm like, you are freaking dumb. Don't do it.
Well, and that gets into prompt engineering too, right? This is a whole, and I don't understand. I understand like 1% of this stuff, but the phrase we use, or we'll use, and I've got just a spreadsheet of like copy paste, but you can teach it. You can say from now on, do not use the word fencing unless I prompt you to insert it somewhere, right? Or unless using it Ozark fence and supply. Well, so don't use the word fence unless it's in conjunction with Ozark fence and supply. Or you can teach it things like that. But it's all like right now people are still trying to figure out the phrasing, the prompt engineering. But eventually, again, ChatGPT is going to ask you 10 or 12 questions. You're going to answer them, and then it'll just be good.
Yeah. Yeah. So I started even going like a step further, and I took our transcripts from the show and I started trying to build like our own chat bot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a bit of a struggle. It doesn't work today. Like I haven't made it to the point where I'm like, yes, this is awesome. But I have played around with it, and it's pretty cool. You can just go on there and like make it. And so it limits you to like 20 uploaded documents or something like that. But so then I had to go back through all of the transcripts and like combine them into one document. But it's been pretty cool. And like you can ask it whatever from like, well, what was episode 3 about? And it'll like give you a summary of what episode 3 was about. And I mean, it's pretty neat. So I thought, to give people like a searchable database of the things that we've talked about and stuff, I thought it would be a really cool tool, but I haven't been able to successfully complete that yet. So, but
like that's just it. It's yet you haven't, but I mean, it's going to continue to advance. We use it for like our ad copy. I'll throw our ad copy through it. I think they're up to 4.5 now, ChatGPT 4.5. We'll feed it through that, and it's better. Yeah. And I posted a deal. This is probably a year ago. I had asked it. We were on ChatGPT 3 or something, 2 or 3, and I said I'd fed it a ad. Right, here's some ad copy for that we use for Ozark Fence. Please optimize for Facebook and speak in the voice of a Midwestern fencing contractor, just to see what it'd say.
Right,
guys, it was the most awful, like almost like insulting. It sounded like Beverly Hillbillies because it's like, hey y'all, have you ever thought about building a fence? And just like all of this.
Oh, so it was our region, is what you're saying.
Right.
It was just the most disrespectful like interpretation. I was like, oh come on, like we are not the Clampetts on Beverly Hillbillies. Like, give me a break. And I posted that on like LinkedIn and Facebook, and I got so many responses and that's where I started learning about prompt engineering. They're like, oh yeah, well you didn't give it any information, so it started grasping at straws, and it's like, okay, Midwestern, like let's think Westerns, and that leads to the howdy y'all and the darn tootin'. It said darn tootin'. What? Like I have never on purpose, like in a conversation, said darn tootin'. Come on.
You heard it here first.
You got to be careful with it. But it's always and so Benji's commenting, guys, sit down with Benji for about an hour and just talk about this because he's the guy I learned from. Like when we're talking about prompt engineering and we're talking about, so he has a sequence of AI different bots that he runs prompts through. And anyway, it's scary, but it's good, especially when you get into video, because then it's, what do you trust?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a big deal. It was in one of the preliminary elections. There was a fake phone call that went out from a AI generated voice of a congressman encouraging people not to vote.
Oh yeah.
He's, and like there's a whole story behind it. And they got released, and like a bunch of people just thought he was calling them to tell them not to vote, on behalf of his campaign or whatever. And it sounded very good.
Wasn't there a story on the cybersecurity episode where they talked about like they used AI and it like mimicked a guy's voice and called his grandmother and like got some money out of his
to solicit money from being in jail or something
right,
like
something
that.
along those lines. And so they're now using it to some extent like in scams and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and,
I don't doubt it.
I mean, so now you can't trust voice, right? And so I think about this myself because we've had several instances where people have like fraudulently gotten money from our company. And so I think about that and I'm like, well, okay, so they will call and verify like a wire transfer or something like that. All I have to do is if I was the scammer, all I have to do is put whatever phone number I want on there. Or, I mean, I'm sure they have a way of like intercepting calls even or something like that.
Sure.
But they could use my voice and approve whatever wire transfer was going on or anything just using AI. And that's the kind of stuff that's scary. Like, how do you fight against that?
Well, and these tools, the AI voice is conversational. Meaning, so I listened to a podcast where they used AI voice, like one of these bots, to call a hair salon and schedule an appointment. So she said, I would like you to call, whatever this place is. I'm available Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday between 8 and 2. Please, create an appointment after 8, but that would be over by 2. The approximate duration is an hour. I said, okay. And so then it called this place and conversationally created what a point I'd like to come in next week. Do you have any openings Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday? Yeah, we have a Wednesday at 10:30. Okay, great. My name is, my phone number is, and it was answering their questions. Wow. And it said, okay, great. And then it added it into her calendar.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I bet if you asked the people at that hair salon, they had no idea that was a bot that called them.
Yeah, I've seen one where it was an ad on Facebook that I've seen where it was I don't know if it was real or not, but it was like Apple called and was talking to a guy about their like VR glasses, the Vision Pro or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it sounded exactly like a person having a conversation with this guy. And it was like 3 or 4 minute long deal or maybe 5 minutes. And it was AI the whole time. And so what they did was they took this person, he had gone onto Apple's website, looked at these glasses, and I think maybe even like put them in the cart and then decided not to buy them because they were too expensive. Uh-huh. And so the AI was like, well, did you know we offered financing? And like took this guy and sold him a pair of glasses, by doing financing, and it emailed him the link to fill out and like all of this stuff. I mean, and it was all AI doing it. So that stuff is absolutely fascinating to me.
Yeah. And then take that nightmare scenario and add video to it.
Oh yeah.
So then you have to question, like, is this real?
Right.
Or did we just get together with some AI tool and it's like, hey, here's a conversation that we would like to have. Here's some, talking points and go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So actually we're at home eating dinner right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, this is a whole
My skin does look a lot smoother than usual.
Well, there's a whole like subsect of folks that like think that we're in a computer simulation anyway. So like that just plays right into that. Like let your mind chew on that overnight. Like stuff nightmares come from.
Yeah, the Matrix, man. The Matrix is real.
Yeah, we're all living it. You just got to take the other pill or something. I don't know.
Yeah, right. So we talked a little bit about our agenda.
Sure.
So that was one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and you said it was good.
Yeah,
And
I like how you guys. So, just my experience was a few days ago or yesterday. Yesterday, days all blend together for me. But you said, "Hey, here's a script we're thinking about. We'll probably change it. You can change it. Just let us know what you thought." And it's a whole show blind out.
Mhm.
It's the subject. It's, hey, I think we're gonna, here's here's how we're gonna introduce you. Let us know if this is incorrect or if we need to make any changes. Here's some topics that we're thinking about, and then here's some just some talking points within those subjects. Guys, I looked at that. I was like, oh, we're doing it wrong. Like, my way is, so if the roles were reversed, we would come on 15 minutes before, and I would just say, hey guys, anything off limits we can't talk about? If we see something in the chat or anything I need to know about that we should dump in the chat, if somebody brings something up, just make me ready, because sometimes there's stuff out there, and you guys know your chat better than I know your chat. So, and then like, hey, I think we're going to talk about these 3 or 4 things. I mean, does that sound good? Is that what you think? Yep. All right. Well, let's see where the conversation takes us. And then we just go.
Right.
And not structured.
Right.
So and I shared with you guys before we came on, when I'm reading this, I was like, I showed it to Mark on my team. I was like, this is where we need to be. We need to be more structured, to have, ultimately it leads to better content because you can stay on topic better, and you know where you can go if you need to take a different direction.
Right. Yeah, it definitely helps. When we talked about it, we normally don't get all the way through the thing. We're not going to get through it today, but I mean, we never really run out of stuff to talk about, right? There's always the next thing down. Sometimes we skip around, might skip a few, and a lot of times, like organically, we're just led to another spot. But yeah, I think we've pretty much done this since the very beginning. Because I mean, otherwise, I think us two, we would have just been like sitting here talking about who knows what. So. Right. I definitely felt like I at least needed something to like keep me talking about what we're here for. So when you make videos, like your YouTube videos, do you write out a script for that, or do you like bullet point it at all, or is it kind of the same?
I'll usually have a general outline. So probably bullet points is, and we'll do a dry run through it. Like, hey, here's what I'm thinking about saying. Here's how I'm thinking about saying it. And I need to find a happy medium. I absolutely understand that. But what I'm afraid of is, because you guys have seen videos other people make that you can tell they're simply following a script, right? Like they're reading a teleprompter, their eyes only go left or right. Oh, like, okay, so they're reading like whatever it is that's on the screen. Like that feels fake. I don't like watching that. I like watching real content. So I don't want to go there. So I almost default the exact opposite. Like, well, then we're not going to script anything. This is all going to be completely off the cuff. So, it's just, I'm more off the cuff than I probably should be. And Mark is trying to rein me in, and because he's like, what if we like just put a general story together, like general outline? I'm like, well, I don't know. That might feel too much like hard scripting, but we're getting there. So now we do outlines, and that's our and right now that's our compromise. Yeah.
And are you guys going back and doing like post-show reviews to kind of hone in your content and seeing like what you like, don't like, what to do better next time, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so we'll go through and watch all. So when you put one of these videos on YouTube, you can watch the analytics and you see the retention drop off. Right. And it can show you, hey, the moment you had the most views is this moment, and the moment you lost the most views is this moment. We'll go back and watch it and say, okay, we should, whatever it is, like we should make some changes, and we'll kind of make notes to that effect of what we should do differently. What we're doing now is, so some of the content is however old, 4, 5, 6 years old. And so now we're going back and watching old content. All right, where do we lose a bunch of people? Where do we gain a bunch of people? And how can we make this different? We don't want to just put out the same content. How can we improve it, make it better, whether it's covering more in depth on a different area of the subject or timing or whatever? So we're definitely going back and watching, but what we'll look for is retention drop off. I mean, ultimately, if people are leaving the video, that's because it's not brought them value, or it's not engaging them, or they just don't like something about it. So,
right. And so that's hard on the podcast. I don't know if, for us, all I see is downloads.
Yeah.
And it doesn't tell you if people like downloaded it and listened to 3 seconds or listened to the whole thing. And, we get a lot of people that listen to this as a podcast in the following days. And so that's kind of challenging too, but YouTube is really nice. Like there's a ton of information on YouTube. And also like you're talking about having years of information, like that's really valuable too. We were looking at some financial stuff today and we looked at an 11-year period.
Right.
And, just having that much data.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. Like basically a P&L for the show, by using the analytics.
Yep. Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah. But that shows that you guys are investing back into the show, right? To say, hey, what could we be doing better? Can we look at the analytics and figure out, and you're absolutely right. Podcast is so far behind YouTube specifically, but video in general, in terms of analytics, like they can absolutely tell you when you have a bunch of drop off, right? Or like it seems to a fence guy that they should be able to tell you that. Now, I don't know if that's real or not, but if you can do it on video, it stands to all this is just data.
Right.
So it's just digital data. Why can you not do it for one piece of digital media, but you can do it for the other? It seems like you should.
Yeah. No, I agree. It seems like it should, but it's not there, at least the way we're doing it for sure. But
no, same. Yeah. If it's out there, I don't know where to find it.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that should and the way we're doing it, we're nearing the end of the show, and I offered to extend to you a moment where you could critique us freely. If you'd like to take us up now, literally though, the question is, do you have any pointers on how we could improve? Some things we're open to your opinion. Obviously, anything we should change, the structure, tips on growing an audience, improve the quality of content, that sort of thing.
No, I enjoy watching you guys. I think the video quality is good. I think the production's good. I'm jealous of your guys' like 3-shot situation you've got going here. Like I'm thinking about that. Like, well, if we put a camera, like while I'm watching you guys, I'm like, this is good. We could put a video camera here and here, and we could switch around. So your content's really good. I like that you have the guests that you're having on are obviously thought out. Like there's a reason that they're on the show. And you're obviously very organized with how you put on the show. I honestly, I would love to help however I can, but I don't know if there's anything to critique you on. Every show is going to be different anyway. You know what I mean? Like everyone has its own character.
I'm hitting end. We're done.
And clip that, and we're out. But no, honestly, guys, you guys are obviously investing a lot of time and effort, energy into this show, and I think it shows on the viewers' end.
Cool. I appreciate that, man, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. So it is crazy when we just kind of like decided to do this, right? And so it was kind of a thing. I was like, man, with Simpolo, I learned there was a lot of people that wanted more information about like bidding to general contractors and kind of working in that commercial world and all. And I was like, where can you find that? And so that's kind of what led us to making the show. Is I was like, well, we'll just do it. And so decided to do it one day. And man, my wife, she's like, why don't you just start with one little cheap camera and, just get something easy going. And I'm like, no, that ain't me. And so I'm like, we're going all in. And so we've got like a full studio thing set up that we didn't know if anybody was ever going to watch this show or not, and went and got all of this stuff and figured out how to set it up, and definitely figured out cord management is a big deal. Like that freaking still gives us nightmares. But yeah, man, we just decided to go in, and it's been fun. It's been cool. And hopefully I think we've provided some valuable content to people.
You're saying we decided, and I'm on the show, right? But I don't remember ever being extended a choice. It was kind of like, hey man, we're doing this thing. And it was like 5 seconds to, okay, I'm on a podcast now.
We're going live now.
I was just kind of along for the ride. So not that I don't appreciate it. I've really enjoyed it, but yeah, I don't know that you ever were like, hey, Zach, what do you think about a podcast? Would you want to be on a podcast? It was just assumed that I'm here and I'm and I'm part of the crew. So here I am, part of the crew, right?
Well, Dan was using the royal we when he
Right,
says
right,
we. Yeah, we
That's right.
decide. I use that one a lot. Like, hey guys, this is what we're going to do, and they're like, well, it sounds like something we're going to do. But
Right, that's right.
you know,
Yeah, that's how it is, man. Sometimes, but
it's
well,
interesting
that's
hearing
cool.
your story because I always wonder how people get involved. You know what I mean? Because everyone's story is always a little bit different on the why. But I think you see the why come through in the show, right? And not necessarily in our industry, but you see other shows where, you know, and a lot of times it's a massive channel as you figure out, well, they're doing it for the money.
Right.
Like whether it's through branded, like big brand endorsements, nationwide, you know, brand endorsements with, Powerade got mentioned earlier, Pepsi and all that, or they're creating their own brand and they're pushing it.
Canon making fun of our logo is why it's like
Yes.
Powerade here. We have a new one now, but it's not on the backdrop yet. So.
Well, you can tell the ones that are doing it for that reason, though, right? You can watch it and you can see brand placement. You know, they're putting certain items like right into view that are fully branded with the like, oh, okay, I get it, right? But then you watch shows like your guys' it's like, well, okay, so I understand you're also publishing your brands. What should we need to do? Right? Like this costs serious money to put on. Like to put these shows on costs serious money and serious time and energy. So we ought to promote our brands first, right? Like this is who we're doing it for. So, but you're also in it to help the industry, right? And that comes through the show, I think, and the people that you have on to talk with, and just the content that you're putting out and how you're putting it out and producing it. I think it shows that you guys are in this for the industry rather than for personal gain or whatever it might be.
Well, it hasn't really personally gained us much of anything, to be honest with you.
Right.
But that was why.
Right, and yet here we are, still going. Like we're still pushing and still trying to do it. And I like the backdrop because this is pretty similar to like what's on our trade show backdrop. So we have the big fold out deal that we had at Fence Tech this year that Zach here got done. And so like all of our stuff is branded pretty similarly. And that's the reason I like this stuff, is because that it makes it really recognizable, right? You understand, I'm preaching to the choir because of your orange. I mean, everyone knows like everything you have is orange. And so I think that's a big deal. The brands, the logos, all of that stuff, like it just kind of all ties everything together, right?
Yeah.
But
branding is massively important, and it's like, this is a whole talk, but if you see a swoosh, you automatically know that's related to Nike.
Yep.
You just do. If you just saw it randomly somewhere, you're like, what's this had to do with Nike? Like, well, no, that's a check mark. Like, well, it looks like a swoosh to me. Right. Or a tagline, I live near Branson, Missouri, and Branson's got a bunch of shows. Like I don't even know how to describe it. It's not like it's some version of a tourist destination. They got a bunch of shows. Well, they've got this guy, and I don't even know if he's still around, but his name's Jim Stafford, or was Jim. I don't even know. Anyway, so when I was a kid, though, he would have all of these radio commercials, and this was back when you had to listen to the radio commercials to listen to your songs. And he had this jingle, and it goes, Jim Stafford's got a brand new show, 335-8080. Jim Stafford's got a brand new show. And it on and on and on and on. And it was always these guys, if someone walked up to me and like, that Jim Stafford guy, I wonder what his phone number is. I'd be like, oh, yeah, it's 335-8080.
Right.
I don't even know if that's his number anymore. Like somebody else has that phone number. Like, why do people keep calling me and asking for Jim? But that's branding. Right. And there's different versions of branding. But branding, whether you're talking about logo branding or you're talking about color branding or just jingle branding, like it's all massively important.
8784987. It doesn't quite have the same ring to it.
Right. Hard to make that one into a jingle there. Well, I think we're at an hour and 10 minutes here. So I sincerely appreciate the time. I really appreciate you coming on here. When you agreed to do it, I was like, we've made it. We're in the big leagues now.
Right.
Oh, no.
Well, and when we first met, I hadn't seen any of your shows or wasn't familiar with any of the content or anything. So Dan was hyping you up, and I just gotta say, it was nice to meet you for the first time. You're a very approachable, friendly, likable dude, and that's an important thing in this whole thing too, man. So I appreciate that. And carrying that openness with you to talk about podcasting and that whole thing, and so obviously being on the show to talk about it some more, man. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome, and I'd like to flip this. I'd like to send you guys my scheduling link and see if you guys would like to come on the show and just talk about your journey through podcasting. And because this is so interesting to me. Like I've got a lot of questions for you, but this is your show, so I'm not wanting to capitalize on that. But I'd like to have you guys on because I've got now. I want to let you know. You probably won't get a Word doc with an outline. It's probably going to be, I'm going to work on it, but it's probably going to be me 15 minutes before.
Right? Yeah, that's fine, man. Absolutely.
Cool.
No, I do appreciate you.
I won't speak for the we this time, but I would love to do it. How about that, Zach?
That's right. Thank you. I appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, I'd love to do it, man. I'd be honored.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
For sure. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out with us. And as always, if you have ideas or suggestions or anything else, we're open to hear it.
That's right. We're in this for you guys. Thank you, Joe Everest, for being on the show tonight.
Very welcome.
It's been awesome. We'll see you soon.
Adios.
I guess.